From a cat protecting a baby from the cold to a whale saving a diver from a shark attack, here are 12 animals that have saved human lives. Willie is a parrot who lives in Colorado with his owner Megan, her roommate Samantha and her roommate's daughter Hannah. One day, the bird, who was in his cage, landed on his perch to watch little Hannah eat her breakfast. Then he noticed something unusual about the child. Hannah was choking and her face had turned blue. The parrot began to flap its wings and shout, "Mommy, baby," several times. Alerted by the cries, Megan ran over and saved the little girl by applying the Heimlich maneuver. By screaming to get Megan's attention, who was in the bathroom, Willie saved little Hannah. It was only after his mistress' intervention that he finally calmed down and stopped his noisy behavior. All's well that ends well. Thanks to his reaction, the brave bird became a hero and was even decorated by the Red Cross. Here is Masha, a stray cat who lives in a building in Russia. One cold day, when the temperature was below 0 degrees Celsius, Masha was lounging in the corridor of the building where she had come to seek some warmth. Her gaze was drawn to a cardboard box that was lying there. Curious, she approached it and discovered a baby that had been abandoned. The cat then immediately jumped into the box and, taken perhaps by a maternal instinct, placed herself right up against the baby to warm him up. Thanks to her long fur, the animal managed to keep the baby warm, protecting him from the cold and saving him from certain death. She remained in this position for several hours, until the baby's cries finally alerted a resident of the building who then discovered the child, embraced by the cat. They then called the emergency services who took the baby away, under the worried look of Masha. It was only when the ambulance left that she finally returned home, welcomed as a heroine by all the inhabitants who spoiled her even more since that day. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything of our next publications. Let's continue. Theo was a miniature pig who lived in Oklahoma with his owner Courtney Goff. They were best friends. One night, as he was getting ready for bed, his attention was drawn to something unusual. The house was on fire while everyone was sleeping. The animal went to Courtney's room and growled several times to wake her up. Courtney's reaction alerted her father and friend who were also sleeping. Theo could have saved himself first by fleeing the burning house, but unfortunately, his heroic act cost him his life. The animal was found by firefighters, unconscious, and later succumbed to his burns. Theo now lives on in the hearts of Courtney and her family and will forever be a hero. Now we're going to tell you about Cooper, the Ernest family dog since he was a puppy. One day, while the family was on their farm in North Dakota, Cooper went outside to play with Carson, the Ernest's 3-year-old child. The dog noticed that Carson, in his playfulness, had begun to wander away from the house, so he followed him. Cooper did not let go of the child and stayed by his side. They ended up getting lost, much to the dismay of the Ernests, who alerted the police and went looking for them. Cooper spent several hours outside in the rain with the boy, on whom he had laid down to protect him and keep him warm. Fortunately, the dog was eventually spotted about a mile from the family home by a man who was assisting in the search, and the two were finally able to return home. Cooper saved the child, and because of his protective instincts and loyalty, he became a great hero to his owners. Marine biologist Nan Hauser, whose story is fantastic, was about to dive into the Pacific to film a humpback whale. As she approached one of these majestic whales, she was surprised to find that the whale pushed her, and then folded its fin and tail over her. Nan remained hidden under the limbs of the whale, without understanding what was happening. Then she realized that a tiger shark was swimming nearby and that the whale was trying to hide her. Incredible! This gesture stunned the biologist, who knew that whales acted in this way towards other animals to protect them from possible aggressors. But she did not know that they would do the same with humans. This act did not fail to frighten her because she could have drowned if she had stayed longer under the whale's fin. Fortunately, it was not the case. The diver found herself on the whale's chest, which brought her back to the surface of the water, and she was able to return to her boat, safe and sound. Nan Hauser had an extraordinary experience, and the whale's protective gesture will remain engraved in her memory. Let's go now to Venezuela, in the state of Vargas, known today as Guaira, to discover the story of Orion. On December 15, 1999, this Rottweiler was in the company of his masters, but contrary to his habits, he was nervous and tried to alert his masters about a catastrophe. The dog was right. Orion found himself, like all the other inhabitants, facing a terrible flood. While his masters were rescued by helicopter, he stayed on the scene and participated in the rescue operations. Indeed, Orion succeeded in carrying people, including children, from one bank to the other, attached by a cord that the rescuers had placed on him so that he would not be swept away by the current. Thanks to his bravery and courage, the dog saved 37 people and became a hero for the rescuers and the people on the scene. He was reunited with one of his owners who had returned to find him. Since then, Orion, known as the dog that saved 37 lives, has become a famous animal around the world. His heroic act has even earned him a medal and a certificate. What the man we are about to tell you experienced is worthy of an Indiana Jones adventure. Robert Biggs, a 69-year-old hiker, was walking through a forest in California. He stopped for a moment to observe a mother bear and her cub. Then he felt something push him and snatch his backpack. He turned around and found a cougar ready to eat him. Robert saw himself dead, hoping for a miracle. It did. When he saw him being attacked by the animal, Mother Bear stepped in to save him and put up a fierce fight against the feline, which eventually got away. Thanks to her, Robert was safe and sound. Phew. He was finally able to go home, with a few wounds of course, but alive and well. The adventure was over, but the memory of this heroine, to whom he owes his life, will remain forever anchored in him. Now listen to the story of Noel Osborne. This Australian farmer was working on his farm in Melbourne. As he was getting ready to do one of his many tasks, the old man slipped on some manure and broke his hip. Ouch! The poor man, who was alone on this remote farm, injured and unable to move, was left to fend for himself. His cries for help were not in vain, as his dog and his goat Mandy came to his aid after hearing him scream. But you'll never know what happened next. The goat snuggled up to him for 5 days, warming him on cold nights and feeding him her milk. Thanks to her, Noel was able to survive the hunger and the cold. His ordeal ended when he was finally rescued and Mandy was found by his side. Since then, they have been best friends. Did you know that some animals can provide first aid to their owners when they are in trouble? Pudding, a newly adopted cat, did just that. As he curled up to sleep with his new owner, he realized that she was in a bad situation. Indeed, the young woman was diabetic and had just had an attack in her sleep. Without delay, the cat put all his weight on her chest and started to nibble her nose. In this way, he succeeded in waking up the young woman, who was able to call her son for help. Thanks to his gesture, Pudding was able to save his mistress from a diabetic coma. And since that day, he has been known as Pudding, the cat savior. Today, our hero lives happily with his family and another cat. And thanks to his action, he has even become a therapy cat. Now we're going to tell you about a dog whose story goes back to 1925. Togo was a Siberian Husky, a sled dog that lived in Alaska. Like all dogs of his kind, he had a thick coat and great resistance to the cold, which allowed him to take on a great challenge one day. The region was in the grip of a diphtheria epidemic, made worse by the extreme cold conditions and the impossibility of transporting the treatment by air. Togo, along with several other dogs, was harnessed to carry the treatment to the population in what was then called the serum race. Togo, leading the cruise, managed to cover the distance necessary to transport the precious medicine, which earned him the status of hero. His strength and courage saved many lives. After his heroic deed, Togo lived for another 4 years, but not without having sired several litters who, one hopes, were as valiant as he was. Togo is still remembered, and in 2011, he was even named the most heroic dog in history by the Times magazine. A movie named after him is dedicated to him. And we end with the video of a dog trying to save his owner from 2 kidnappers. This German Shepherd was with his little mistress in a camp, keeping an eye on her to protect her. Then he saw 2 strangers coming and trying to kidnap the girl. The dog rushes to the 2 men and manages to attack them, biting them and forcing them to let go of the little girl. Thanks to his reaction, the German Shepherd saved his mistress and could then quietly return to his place at her side. This is of course only a play that was performed to show how loyal and protective a German Shepherd can be, and to prove that this dog is a real hero. These were 12 situations that show that sometimes our animal friends are real heroes and save our lives. Do you know of other animals that have saved people? Tell us about it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.